organs. And our team, they confronted those criminals, whereby 8 of them were fatally wounded. And then we arrested 8. Later on, when we were sweeping the area, including those who hold a household hostage, we have managed to arrest 10 of those criminals. They've already appeared before court. It is postponed again for next week. I think it will be on the 3rd. In that safe house, we have managed to recover heavy caliber firearms there. It was 5 AK-47s, 1 R4 rifle, 2 DM4 rifles, and 15 rifle magazines, and 363 live ammunition. We have also recovered a jammer, which these guys are using to block all the communication systems around there. We recovered 5 commercial explosives, 3 electrical detonators, 9 small explosives, 4 large explosives, and 4 cords, which they are using to connect all these explosives. We further recovered 13 motor vehicles. Some were already hijacked some time ago. I think these were the vehicles which they were intending to use when they commit crime. And some of the vehicles which we also recovered are some of the vehicles which they took from people when they try to escape hijacking whoever they get on the street. In total, it was 13 motor vehicles which were recovered in that particular space. Like I've said, that 4 of our own, they sustained some injuries. Warrant Officer Naika, it's an Elio, and is recuperating very well in hospital. Constable Lekwatsima also suffered some injuries on his hands and some scratch marks on his head. He's also recovering very well. We have an Officer Gates from JMPD. He's also doing very well in hospital, he's recovering. And Sergeant Mohali, he was treated and discharged on the same day. So this incident, it happened at number 50, Friar Hill Road in Rosettenville. Our officers, they didn't sit back and enjoy or celebrate the success. They continue to work very hard to search for those suspects who have escaped. And what is pleasing is that on Wednesday, they've managed to follow another suspect. They were working around the clock looking for this one, went to Soweto, went to Tembisa, Pumulong, and so forth, until they accosted that one. They went to his place. It's just a hiding place, because if you check there, it's not having all the furniture which shows that somebody is staying there. It clearly is an operational area for them. In that particular space, we managed to find 9 firearms, of which 4 were rifles again, and then 5 pistols. Lots and lots of ammunition again was recovered there. A 12-channel jammer was found there. What was disturbing, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, is that we have also found some pieces of police uniform. That is the bulletproof jacket, the reflectors, a cap, police cap. We've also found some stack of money there. And again, the team didn't rest there. They continue again, searching for the others. So early hours of this morning, I was informed that another one is arrested. What is disturbing again is that a police uniform was also found in his possession. In him, we found a gun, unlicensed gun, police and ammunition, police uniform. It's a combat clothes like the one which I'm wearing, of junior members. But I'm so grateful with what our team is doing. They are not resting, and they are continue to can search for the others. And we have made the message very clear to them that they have a choice to hand themselves over, or will come and fetch them. The net is gradually closing on them wherever they are. So briefly, Chairperson, this is what happened. And the members, our minister also visited the crime scene. He congratulated the members on the scene. The Premier of Gauteng also invited the team. He also spoke to them and congratulated them. And they feel motivated. They want to continue and give their all so that they continue to search those who are still out there. Thanks, Chairperson. That is briefly about the success we have achieved.
Thanks for the brief, Honourable PC. We are not going to interrogate.
Well, we're coming out of that briefing by Mr. Mawela. Now, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro Municipal.
15 million people. This is in accordance to the Statistics South Africa Mid-Year Population Estimate 2017 series. The same data used to compute the crime rates for the contact crimes in this report. The size of the province is in square kilometers, 18,390. Hence, it will remain the most crowded province, and yet it occupies the smallest land area out of all South Africa's provinces. We must also take into consideration that Gauteng will still be one of the provinces which is likely to experience the largest flow of migrants, both domestically and internationally. This is mainly due to the province's socio-economic strength, opportunities such as employment, studying, and quality of life that influences its attractiveness to the migrants. Although some will argue that scientifically there is no direct correlation between crime and the population, it is worth noting that overpopulation coupled with challenges concerning other socio-economic conditions such as unemployment, poverty, poor environmental design are amongst the other factors most affecting crime levels in the province. However, against all these odds, I'm pleased to say that we have managed to reduce most of the crime categories. Although the overall crime picture is not so grim, we still have concerns with other crime categories which seems to be on the rise. Honorable members, allow me at this point to give a synopsis of the crime picture for the period 1st October to the 31st December 2021. This is the busiest time in the year as everyone is in the festivity mood, which also allow free movements. This tends to create a more opportunity for criminals to target members of the public for their criminal gains. Coming to the 17 community reported serious crime. Gauteng Police recorded crime statistics for the third quarter of the year 2021-2022, as reflected under the 17 community reported crime category, decreases by 3.1%. And this means that we have recorded a decrease of 3,463 counts, lower in comparison with the same period in 2020-2021. In our analysis, Honorable Chairperson, this was as a result of a drop in 2 of the 4 broad categories of crimes, namely contact crime, property-related crimes, while the other 2 crime categories, contact-related crimes and other serious crimes, recorded an increase during the period. It will then be understandable that Gauteng contributed 27.7% of the overall crime in the country for this quarter, of which it remained on the same average in the current in the current financial year for the first and the second quarters. We have also observed over the years the contribution of our provincial top 40 priority stations reducing. These stations contributed 48.9% of the Gauteng total crime figure in respect of the 17 community reported crimes during the third quarter of 2021-2022, a number which we saw reducing from over 51% since 2018-2019 financial year. So there is a greater movement, especially in our priority stations, because when we started here, they were contributing over 50% of the crime situation in the province. Hence, we targeted those stations. And it clearly shows that if those 40 police stations reduces their crime, then the provincial crime picture also changes. Coming to the contract crime, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, although we have recorded a significant decrease of this category by 4.5%, which is translating to 2,181 counts, lower in comparison with the same period in 2020-2021. We are deeply worried about other serious crimes that fall under this category, such as murder, attempted murder, as well as robbery aggravating, as they all remain stubbornly high, especially robbery aggravating, Chairperson. It is of biggest concern for us because this is a crime of fear. This is what makes the people of Gauteng can not feel safe because of this robbery aggravating. Murder during this period under review, 243 more people were killed in Gauteng, which reflect an increase by 18.3%. This is the highest increase in the last 5 years. Gauteng is the second province with the highest number of cases of murder during the period under review, and it is mainly due to the size of the population. However, when we look at other provinces, murder rate, to ensure a fair comparison among them as expressed in the number of people killed per 100,000 of the population, Gauteng murder rate is at 10.3% per 100,000 population, which is lower than the other 3 provinces. Out of 1,570 of the people who were killed, 189 were women, while 37 of them were children. Furthermore, a total of 41 cases of murders registered during the same period were related to domestic violence, where majority of the victims were females, 23 of those, and 18 were males. Excuse me. For the sample of 1,280 cases, the top 3 contributors established of the general increase of murder were arguments and misunderstanding, not related to domestic, by 112 cases, followed by the robberies, that will be house robberies, business robberies, and street robberies by 50 cases, and vigilantism have contributed 29 cases. In relation to murders at farms and small holding, we had 3 incidents where 2 of the victims were residents on the farm or small holding, and 1 was a farm worker. A total of 5 SABC members were murdered during this time. In relation to the place of occurrence where these incidents happened, it was determined that the top 3 common places where these murders were likely to take place are public places like on the street, open field, parking areas, abandoned buildings, which contributed a total of 564 offenses. 309 murders occurred at the residence of the victim, of the perpetrator, and 70 happened at liquor outlets. Among many other factors that contributed to murder increases in Gauteng is this phenomenon of multiple murders. This is where there is more than 1 victim murdered in 1 incident. Gauteng had 18 dockets of murder registered with 50 victims, that has contributed to more accumulated counts of murder during this quarter. Examples of the incident of multiple murder that occurred during the quarter under review happened in Kagiso, Lodium, and Atteridgeville. In Kagiso, 7 people were killed and 5 injured by a group of armed balaclava-clad men. This incident happened at a house close to where there was a wedding. Consequently, people who also attended the wedding were also affected. In Lodium, investigation revealed that a vehicle stopped near an illegal shebeen. The occupants then randomly shot at the patrons of this. The motives for this shooting are still under investigation, but the investigation revealed to us that these people they just shot at the patrons and resulted in the murder of these people, and where 12 other people were injured. So it's something which is happening in Gauteng, and we are looking into it. One individual will go and find happy people sitting, enjoying themselves, just shoot at them. And that is one of the reasons which is making the murders in Gauteng can go out. It's not to say that it's separate incidents happening all over. Coming to assault, one of the biggest concerns for all of us, Chairperson and honorable members, both assaults with the intent to inflict grievous bodily harm and common assault contributed over 51% of overall contact crime in Gauteng. These two crimes alone recorded 23,917 counts out of 46,221 total counts of the contact crime category. So when you observe here the contact crime, half of it is when people they are beating each other up. So if those people they can refrain doing that, obviously the contact crimes in Gauteng will come down. This is a clear indication of the negative social behavior of resulting to resolving dispute with violence. Circumstances in most cases lead to a violent reaction by the perpetrators. The most prominent motive or causative factors leading to these two crimes are arguments, misunderstandings resulting from social behaviors. These two crimes are also leading contributors towards our domestic-related cases. Of all cases that were registered of assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, 1,938 counts were as a result of domestic violence, and common assault accounted to a total of 5,021 counts related to domestic violence. Coming to sexual offenses, Honorable Chairperson and members, we have also observed a significant reduction in all 3 offenses: rape, sexual offenses, assaults, sexual assaults, contact sexual offenses, reported under umbrella sexual offenses by 7.4%, which translates to 243 counts, lower in comparison with the same period in 2020-2021. This reduction is attributed to all the measures that we have put in place, such as enhancing partnership with communities and NGOs, awareness campaigns, suspect tracing operations, coupled with good convictions by our courts. These successes are being communicated through all available channels of the media to serve as a deterrent to those that have intention to commit rape. You will notice, Honorable Chairperson and members, during the presentation that Temba Police Station has moved from the 1st to the 6th position on the top 30 sexual offenses contributing stations in the country. To achieve this difference, we have, during this period, concentrated our efforts at the problematic station. We also have to recognize and commend our MEC of Community Safety, Ms. Faith Mazibuko, for her intervention in Temba. Her initiative and effort to reach out to the communities in that area has made a positive impact. The MEC was on the ground with the GBVF brigades, interacting with the community through awareness campaigns. The MEC also donated 23 vehicles to be utilized by the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit, and 11 more vehicles that have been allocated to victim empowerment centers, as well as patrol vehicles for SABC Temba. So we have strengthened the resources for Temba Police Station, and her active involvement on the ground also gave us the desired result. Even though for this period, Temba is only up with one count. We are grateful to be reaping the rewards of your hard work, MEC, and we can assure you that those vehicles have enhanced our service delivery, especially to the victims of GBVF. Coming to the trio crimes, which is our most problematic crime category. Crime reported under subcategory aggravated robberies, including the trio crimes, are most prevalent in the province. 4 of the crimes reported under the subcategory registered an increase during the current reporting period. Carjacking increased by 20.4%, truckjacking increased by 18.9%, bank robberies, 2 more counts were recorded, house robberies increased by 2.6%, while cash in transit heist decreased by 29.0%. Kidnapping, one of the topical issues in our country. Kidnapping are most prevalent in all 5 districts in this province, as they all have shown a significant increase. This crime trend is often associated with hijackings, as during the commission of crime, the victims are taken with, deprived of freedom of movement, and drop off at other places later on. Hijackings are the leading motive for this crime in the province, as we have reported 523 cases of kidnapping during the period, and resulting from the hijackings. The other leading motives related kidnappings are robbery and rape. Contact-related crimes. 2 crimes reported under the category, namely arson and malicious damage to property, both increased by 13.8% and 3.0% respectively. One of the leading motives for these crimes is domestic violence. Honorable Chairperson, I was so concerned when we were analyzing our domestic-related cases. We find that people, they even resort to arson to burn the property during the domestic violence in their household, of which is of concern that people, they can even be violent to that an extent of setting the premises to fire, or the curtains, or anything within the house. So it is of great concern to all of us. Coming to the property-related crimes, while all property-related crimes decreased by 6.6%, translating to 1,674 less count registered, theft of motor vehicle was the only crime under the category, which increased by 0.7%, translating into 38 counts more. Other serious crime, the last category of the 17 community-reported crime, which is other serious crime category, indicated an increase of 0.5% in comparison with the 2020-21 period under review. Honorable Chairperson, crime depending or resulting of the police action. Honorable members, for the quarter under review, through our continued operation, routine stop and searches, we have managed to take 1,183 unlicensed firearms off the streets. We will continue relentlessly to ensure that we fight the proliferation of unlicensed firearms in our province. The statistics that will be presented here will show that firearms have an impact on the increase on our murder, attempted murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances, as in most of these crimes. Firearms are indicated as an instrument commonly used during the commission of these crimes. We also have some recommendations to make, Honorable Chairperson. Fighting crime requires a multi-sectoral approach that we need to maintain when we plan our operations. Okaimolao Operation especially continues to yield positive successes due to the resources of multiplicity approach that we have adopted. The operation will continue to offer a platform from various departments and agencies in the province to conduct their duties in a safe and secure environment. So when we come together as a whole of a government approach, we have realized that we achieve more, instead of us having the fragmented approach whereby each one do his or her own operation. So when we enter into one space, each one they ensure that they execute their legislative mandate. Through the multidisciplinary approach, we can achieve a lot, and therefore I propose the following recommendation to the Honorable Chairperson of this House. Expedite. Talking to other committees, I know that this is not the responsibility of this committee, but I guess it's a social, it's an economic committee, to expedite the finalization of the process to migrate the shebeen permits to the licensed licenses, to the liquor licenses. We have observed when we do the operations, we find that a lot of people, they're still in possession of the shebeen permits, of which the intention was that in the long run, this shebeen permits, it will be migrated to the permanent liquor licenses. Many of the people, they still photocopy this thing, they commit fraud, some they relocate from one area to another, go and operate in an area whereby this permit were not issued for. It creates a problem when we operate. We'll also recommend that a priority should be given to the amendment of the Provincial Liquor Act, and specifically focusing on the treating hours of these liquor outlets. We also request that the committee assist us. We have tried our level best. The MEC tried her level best. She even engaged the previous mayor of Ekurhuleni to intervene in expediting the process of securing suitable accommodation for Kwatema Police Station, Acacia Police Station, and Florida Detective Branch. All those areas, if Chairperson, you can visit those places and see how our members are operating in that kind of accommodation, it is totally not conducive at all. We will appreciate if, through your influences, through your interaction with other sectors, including the Department of Public Works, that we are assisted. But the Kwatema, specifically the city of Ekurhuleni, must assist us in that particular space. When I conclude, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, I have to acknowledge contributions towards the fight against crime by our partners, law enforcement agencies that include Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane Metro Police Department, the various municipal and traffic police, Gauteng Traffic, Road Traffic Management Corporation. We also have sustained a very good working relationship with Business Against Crime through the Eyes and Ears Project, National Liquor Traders Council, Community Policing Board, through the various levels of community policing forums, Community in Blue Patrollers, and the Youth Desk. My appreciation also goes to the communities of Gauteng for heeding our calls during the festive season to celebrate responsibly. The outcome of the collaboration between the law enforcement and agencies and the communities was a peaceful and eventful crossover to 2022. Together with our partners, we walked the streets of Gauteng day and night in our endeavor to ensure that the inhabitants of this province are and they feel safe. This is the vision of the government's National Development Plan 2030, whereby it says that the people living in South Africa must feel safe at home, at school, at work, and they enjoy a community life free of fear, Women walk freely in the streets and children play safely outside. Furthermore, I would also like to appreciate the continued support that we as the SAPS receive from the Gauteng government under the leadership of Premier David Makhura. The Premier has also contributed 45 high-performance vehicles that have been allocated to the Highway Patrol. These were handed over to us during the provincial launch of our annual Safer Festive operation. These vehicles have made a positive difference in the fight against crime. Honorable members, we are slowly acclimatizing to the realities that the honeymoon phase is over and the return to normalcy is imminent as we are preparing for the eventual end to the state of disaster. With the relaxation of the Disaster Management Act regulations, as per the adjusted alert level number 1, we have started seeing a high mobility of people, and with the high mobility of people comes more opportunities for criminals to pounce. They are daring and they are now operating 24/7. The crime picture will change, but we are ready. We are reviewing our operational plans, strengthening our social and private and public stakeholder relations. These partnerships are part of the reasons we are seeing a continuous decrease in the most of our crime categories. Honorable members, we are not yet there. As majority of the people participating in the Victims of Crime Survey by Statistics South Africa 2019-2020 indicated that they do not feel safe, irrespective of the crime stats. Crime stats can go down, but you ask the people, they say, we don't feel safe. Even though perception of safety is considered to be subjective, well-being, we are, however, committed to still ensure that the people living in South Africa feel and have no fear of crime. Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, I now hand over to Brigadier Mpochakalani to present the comprehensive crime picture of the third quarter of 2021-2022 financial year. I thank you so much for the opportunity. I think you need to come this side.
Thank you, PC, for the overview. We'll request have you submitted your presentation to them so that they fly it? All right, thanks. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me first start acknowledging my senior, starting with you, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members of the committee, MEC members Zeboko, management of the SAPS, media, as well as the stakeholders that are present. Chairperson, I will be taking you through the breakdown of the crime statistic for the period under review, referring to the 1st of October up until December 2021, which is compared with the previous year. As PC has indicated in his speech, he elaborated that we have seen some of the reduction from our crime. However, we are still concerned with other crime that are still on the rise, showing an increase. Let me quickly start with the presentation, Chairperson. We have reverted back to the format that everybody is accustomed to, whereby we are showing a 5-year trend in terms of each category of crime, how it has performed up until the current period. Starting with our contact crime, Chairperson, for period under review, we have a reduction of 4.5%, which translates to a reduction of 2,181 cases less that were recorded by Gauteng, whereby under this category, 4 of the 7 contact crime reported an increase. Of those that reported an increase, of which is of concern to us, is murder, Murder in the last five years, we have seen a drastic increase for now by 243 counts, which reflect an increase of 18.3%. Another increase that we have observed under the category is with regard to our attempted murder, where we increased by 5.6%, 74 cases more that we have registered. Still under contract crime, another increase that we have recorded is with regards to our robbery aggravating, an increase of 0.1%, 18 more cases reflected an increase. Those that reduce are assault GBH, common assault, common robbery, as well as sexual offenses. Still under the contract crime, Chairperson, but zooming into the robbery aggravated as well as sexual offenses, those two subcategories are already accounted for under the broader category of contract crime. We just have to show the breakdown of the offenses that are reported under those subcategories. Starting with robbery aggravated, there are 6 offenses that are reported under this category, which is carjacking, truck carjacking, the CIT, bank robberies, house robberies, as well as business robbery. Our carjacking, we unfortunately increased by 478 counts, translating to 20.4% increase. This was the case as well with regards to our truck carjacking, where we increased by 43 counts, 18.9% increase. Fortunately, with regards to our CIT, we have recorded a reduction of 29%. With regards to our bank robbery, Chairperson, we have not reported an increase since 2017-2018 financial year. This current period, we have 2 incidents of bank robberies that were reported by Gauteng, coming from Douglasdale as well as Lenasia. Those are the 2 incidents of bank robberies that we have reported. Moving over to house robberies, we also reported an increase of 2.6%, 51 more counts that we have reported. Lastly, under robbery aggravated subcategory business robbery, we reduced by 4.2%. Trio crime, Chairperson, which is covered by carjacking, house robbery, as well as business robberies, we have reported an increase of 7.7%. This increase was as a result of the increases that we have observed under carjacking as well as house robberies. Moving over to sexual offenses, still under contract crime. Fortunately, for this subcategory, we have reported a reduction for all offenses reported under the subcategory, which is rape, reducing by 6.4%, attempted rape, 4.1%, sexual assault, a reduction of 8.9%, contact sexual offenses, a reduction of 28.9%. Next page, Chairperson, moving over to our contact-related crime, which is the next category of our 17 committee reported. Under this category, there are 2 offenses that are reported, which is arson as well as malicious damage to property. We have lost the 2 offenses for this period. With arson, we increased by 13.8%. Malicious damage, we increased by 3%. As a result, we lost the entire category by 3.2% increase that we have reported. PC has touched upon it, where the contributing factors towards these incidents that were reported. Moving over to our property-related crime, overall reduction of the category by 6.6%. However, there's only 1 offense under the category whereby we increased by 0.7%, whereas the other categories we have a reduction, which is burglaries at residential premises, a reduction of 4.1%, burglaries at non-residential premises, a reduction of 7.8%, theft out of motor vehicle, a reduction of 14.5%, stock theft, a reduction of 23.2%. Last category of the 17 committee reported, which is other serious crime, we have reported an increase of 0.5% as a result of increases from our theft general, which is also known as all theft not mentioned everywhere, an increase of 0.1%. Commercial crime also, which remain our problematic crime in the province, which also shown has been on the rise ever since, an increase of 10.6%. Hence, we are having an overall increase of this category due to those 2 offenses reporting an increase. In terms of the overall crime, which are reflected as a 17 committee reported offense for Q3 for Gauteng, we have reduced by 3.1%. whereby 3,463 cases less were reported during the period. Moving over to our crime dependent on police action for detection, Chairperson, ideally for this category would have want to see a reduction, an increase, as opposed to the 17 committee reported where we want to see a reduction. We unfortunately had an increase and a reduction for this category of 15.8% as a result of truck-related crime, driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, as well as sexual offenses detected as a result of police action having a reduction. Only illegal possession of firearm and ammunition, whereby we have reported an increase of 3.9%. Chairperson, the purpose of the slide is to show overall where Gauteng stands in relation to other provinces. Data source, we normally obtain it from Stats SA. They normally tailor-made data according to the series that we will be releasing during that particular period. So, according to this information, although there was a slight reduction of population during this period, Gauteng still remained the most crowded province when we compare to other provinces. The reason for this slide, Chairperson, is because when we calculate or compute our crime rate, we use this population estimate. Reason being that this is where we ensure fairness across all the provinces, whereby we zoom into 100,000 population to see whether the likelihood of each crime, where the victims, how many victims will be out of 100,000 population. Next slide. When we do the computation of the crime rate, we normally focus on the contact crime, offenses being murder, attempted murder, assault GBH, common assault, total common robbery, as well as sexual offenses. This is whereby the victims is a person. Hence, we are doing the ratio to determine out of this 100,000 population, how many people are likely to be the victims or being affected by the crime. So when we look at the crime rate, the ratios for all the 6 offenses that I have mentioned. Murder and attempted murder, those are the 2 offenses whereby the ratio for the current period is slightly higher compared to the previous period when you look at the 100,000 population. For current period under review, murder, we have 10.3 of murders out of 100,000 population. In relation to our attempted murder is 9.2 per 100,000 population. Assault GBH, it's 70.8 per 100,000 population. Common assault, 86 per 100,000 population. Common robbery, 23.8 per 100,000 population. Sexual offenses is 19.9 per 100 population. Next slide, please. Then this slide, Chairperson, we also kept it. It was already released by National when they released last week. Is only zooming into the murder rate in relation to all other provinces. PC in his speech already mentioned that when you look at Gauteng, it's amongst those provinces whereby year in, year out, in terms of murders that are recorded per period, they show the highest number. The second province after KZN, whereby the murders are mostly high. However, when we look at this scenario, zooming into the crime ratio, looking at Gauteng where we stand. Gauteng, we are far lesser than the other 3 provinces, which is Eastern Cape, Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, whereby out of 100,000 population, the likelihood of people being murdered. With Eastern Cape is 18.7, Western Cape is 15.1, KwaZulu-Natal is 14.2, and Gauteng we are standing at 10.3, and the rest of other provinces follows after Gauteng. Next slide, please. Chairperson, looking at our overall crime category, 17 community reported crime, Gauteng performance in relation to our other provinces, We have reduced the overall category of 17 committee reported crime for period under review by 3.1%. When you look in terms of the actual values, the counts, we are the highest province in terms of the reduction, the number of counts that we reduce. We reduced by 3,463 counts. The contribution that we are making to the overall figure of the national, as PC indicated, is for this quarter is 27.7%, of which is the figure that we have observed since the beginning of this financial year for quarter 1 and quarter 2, which ranging on averagely around 27%, meaning that there's still some work. We are not contributing 50% as the narrative is out there that Gauteng is contributing 50% of crime in South Africa. We are contributing actually around 27%. Next slide, please. Now looking at the 3 months which is making up the quarter, which is October, November, December, in relation to our 7 committee reported offense, we have recorded reduction for all these 3 months. From October, we reduced by 687. November, 823 counts less that we reported. We have seen a noticeable reduction in December of 1,953 counts less that we have reduced. Looking at the district, the 5 districts in the province, unfortunately, only 1 district have recorded overall crime increase, referring to the 17 committee reported crime, which is West Rand. It has increased by 5.8%. An indication an increase of 435 counts. The other 4 districts have reported the reduction. The highest in terms of the actual counts is Ekurhuleni, reducing by 1,332. The second, which is following in terms of the counts, is Johannesburg by 1,270, Tshwane 1,168, and Sedibeng 194 counts less that they have recorded. Next slide, please. Our top 40 for quarter 3, Chairperson, I have to indicate that this station, they change it every quarter when we release. Although they remain the same, we find out they shift the position around, mainly because of, it depends on what they have recorded during the quarter. For instance, Honeydew for this quarter, they are appearing to be the first in the province in terms of the 17 committee reported crime, because they have recorded a total of 2,173 count during this period, which reflected an increase of 8.7%. Although they have reported the reduction, they still found themselves in this top 40 list because of the volumes. It is followed by Johannesburg Central, although Johannesburg Central have reported an increase. Those 2 stations, normally they are alternating the position 1 and 2 in the province, and they normally also alternate in 2 or 3 in the national list. The other station, Chairperson, that are also featuring in the national list of the top 30 of 17 committee reported crime are those top 13 stations which are highlighted in yellow. The stations are Honeydew, Johannesburg Central, Temba, Randfontein, Alexandra, Tembisa, Acacia, Pretoria Central, Brooklyn, Midrand, Rutherford, Kagiso, as well as Hillbrow. Those are the 13 stations that are also featuring in the national list. Chairperson, of those top 40, of our top 40, 26 stations recorded the reduction and 14 stations indicated an increase. And of those that reported an increase, Kagiso was the highest with 242 counts higher. Those that reported the reduction, Sunnyside was the highest in terms of the reduction with 273 counts lower. Next page. These are the remainder of the top 40 for quarter 3, of which in the position 40 is Pretoria West, which also had a reduction of 4%. Chairperson, for this quarter, this top 40 contributed 48.9%. We have seen this number reducing over the year. Just for the last quarter, this quarter 2, they have contributed 49.5 overall crime in Gauteng. So we have seen just a noticeable reduction there, because currently they are contributing 48.9% of overall crime in Gauteng. Next slide, please. Now moving over to our contact crime, As well, during the month, October, November, December, we have reported the reduction for contact crime as a category. In October, 413, November, 355, December, 1,413. Zooming into the district, the West End was the only district that reported an increase in relation to the contact crime by 1.8%, which is equivalent to 61 counts more. The other 4 districts have reported the reduction, the highest being Johannesburg in terms of the counts by 1,070. It was followed by Ekurhuleni by 640. The others have also reported a reduction. Next slide, please. In terms of our top 40 for our contact crime, Johannesburg Central there is topping all the other stations by recording 1,079 cases of contact crime, which reflected an increase of 5.6%, whereby 57 counts more were reported. It was followed by Alexandra, reported 985, an increase as well of 12.2%. In the third position was Temba, although it has reduced by 2.5%. Chairperson of this top 40 station of a contact crime, the top 14 of those are also featuring in the national list. Just to mention, from the 4th position, as I mentioned, the 3rd position is Tembisa, Kagiso, Hillbrow, Mamelodi East, Tanijo, JP, Ivory Park, Randfontein, Deep Slot, Eldorado Park, as well as Acacia. Chairperson of those top 40 stations, 24 stations reported a reduction. Roodepoort was the only station that stabilized this category, meaning what they have reported currently, the counts are more the same as what they have reported during the previous period. In terms of those increase, there was 15 stations indicated an increase. The highest increase was recorded by Alexandra with 107 counts more, and those reported a reduction. Hillbrow was the highest in terms of the reduction by 249 counts less that they have reported. Next slide, please. These are the remainder of our top 40 for contact crime. In the 40th position is Olivenholt-Bosch, reducing by 14.2%. Chairperson, all these stations are contributing 51.6% of our total figure for contact crime during Q3 of the financial year. Next slide, please. Now we're still under contact crime, but we're looking at the crimes that are affecting women and children. Here, we're only looking at murder, attempted murder, as well as assault GBH. Chairperson, you recall that we said we reported 1,570 counts of murder. This is the number of people that were killed in Gauteng during the period. Of this 1,570, 189 were women, and 37 of those were children. With women, we have increased by 30.3%, meaning currently it was 189 women that were killed as compared to 145 from previous period. With regards to children, currently, it's 37 children that were killed, that were murdered, when you compared with 49 from the previous period, which translates to a reduction of 24.5%. Looking at the other 2 offenses, which are attempted murder, assault, and assault GBH. Those, in terms of attempted murder, in the relation to the victims, 345 were women, which reflected an increase of women who were involved in the attempted murder offense, an increase of 91 counts in terms of the increases. With regards to the children, it was 41, an increase of 8 counts. Those women that were the victims of the assault GBH increased by 129, which reflected that 3,638 women were the victims of assault GBH. In terms of the children, a reduction of 16 counts, meaning that 328 children were the victims of crime, assault GBH. These cover both boys and girls child from the age of 0 to 17. Next slide, please. Moving over to our domestic violence-related cases, Chairperson. In Gauteng, when you look at the 3-month period, which is October, November, December, December was the month whereby most of the offenses that are linked to domestic violence were recorded in Gauteng. We're looking at the overall total that were recorded for quarter. It was 9,292 cases that were linked to domestic violence that were reported, of which from this 9,292, the highest proportion was coming from Johannesburg because it was contributing 41% of these cases that were reported. It is followed by Ekurhuleni by 23%, Tshwane 21%, Western 10%, and 5% from Sedibeng contributing to this total of 9,292 counts. Next slide, please. Now looking at the selected crime whereby they were as a result of domestic related, which is attempted murder, rape, sexual assault, GBH, common assault, robbery with aggravated circumstances, common robbery, arson, malicious damage to property, all theft not mentioned elsewhere, as well as burglaries at residential premises. I will have a zoom in into the top 3 crime whereby domestic violence played a role in the province. Looking at the first one, it was common assault. Of all cases of common assault that were reported in the province during the quarter, 5,021 cases of those were linked to domestic violence, of which the majority of the victims were female with 4,189 and male 832. And the contributing district there, it was Johannesburg there with 2,024, followed by Tshwane, 1,163. The second most offenses whereby domestic violence always played a role is assault with intent to inflict grievous body harm, whereby out of this total of assault GBH, 1,938 cases of those were linked to domestic violence. Still with this one, the majority of victims were female with 1,335, male 603. Still with this one as well, Johannesburg is still taking the lead in terms of the contributors in the province by 803, followed by Ekurhuleni 482. The third most offense, which are also contributors of our domestic violence, is malicious damage to property. Out of all cases of malicious damage to property that were reported in the province, 1,653 of those were as a result of domestic violence, whereby the females still being the victims of the majority of the victim by 1,070, male 583. Still with this one, Johannesburg is still taking the lead, followed by Ekurhuleni. Just to mention other serious crime, chairperson, whereby the domestic violence played a role in terms of attempted murder. Of all the cases of attempted murder that we have recorded, 40 of those were the results of domestic violence. Murder, in relation to murder, of all the 1,570 cases of murder that were reported, 41 of those were the results of murder, whereby still with this one, female were the majority of victims. Rape, 133 of those were as a result of murder. Next slide, please. Looking at the breakdown of our murder, for 3 months making up the quarter, October, November, December, we have seen increases in these 3 months. October, we increased by 79, November, 67, December, 97. The district there reflecting an increase is 4 of them, is with the exception of Tshwane, whereby they reduced by 4 counts, 1.8% reduction. Of those districts that reported an increase, the highest in terms of the counts there was Ekurhuleni, was Johannesburg with 84 counts, followed by Ekurhuleni, 76 counts more were recorded for murder. Sedibeng, 46 counts more were recorded. Western, an increase of 41 counts. Next slide, please. In terms of the contribution, the motive behind our murder in the province, argument, misunderstanding not related to domestic violence, still remaining our concern in terms of they are contributing largely towards our murder in the province. These are all the things that are mainly coming from the social behavior. From the sample that we took, which is 80% of the murder that we reported, meaning out of 1,570, we sample 1,280, which make 80% of the population, which is mostly likely to be representing the entire population. So from this sample, It's 112 that we have determined that argument contributed to our murder in the province. The second most contributor to our murder in the province from the sample is robbery, from the house robbery, business robbery, as well as other robberies, with 50 cases. The third most contributors of our murder in the province is vigilantism, with 29 cases. Chairperson, as PCF indicated, I also have to indicate that in addition to these causative factors, but not necessarily being the causative, but the phenomena which is mostly we are experiencing in the province is other cases whereby there is police killings.
Right, you've been listening and watching Brigadier Mpho Chakalani giving the latest crime stats in the Gauteng province for the period of
The other contributing factor whereby PC has already alluded to is the problem where we are experiencing the multiple murder. When you look at this quarter alone, out of these 18 dockets that we are registered in Gauteng, resulted in 50 victims being killed. When you do the breakdown of this, in 11 dockets, it registered 2 victims each. In 4 dockets, it registered 3 victims each that were murder. 1 docket, it was 4 victims. 1 docket as well, it was 5 victims, where this is the case whereby in Lodium, and 1 docket whereby it was 7 victims in 1 incident. This was Kagiso incident. As a result, we're ending up this rising number of count that we are accumulating over the period. Lastly, in terms of the farming community, the killings there were 3 incidents of farm murders that were reported. 2 of those victims were residents on the farm and small holding, and 1 was a farm worker. Next slide, please. When we look at the place of occurrence where these murders are likely to occur in the province, the commonly place where this murder are occurring in the province, according to the analysis that we did from the sample size, is the public place, which you are referring to the street, open field, recreation center, park, as well as the abutment building, with the total number of 564. The second most place where these incidents are likely to occur is the residence of the perpetrator, the victim, with a total number of 309 from the sample that we did. The third most is the liquor outlets, referring to the shebins, taverns, pub, nightclub, and bottle store, with 7. The business premises also played a role there with 59 counts more, and agricultural land, farm plot, and small holding with 13, mode of transport 8, bus stop and rank 6, government premises is 6 as well. When you look at our top 40, next slide please, of our murder during the period, the first contributing station there, which is ranking number 1 in the province and number 6 in the national list, is Kagiso. Kagiso, for quarter 3, 51 people were killed, which reflected an increase of 18 counts. It is followed by Alexandra, which is 2 province and 8 in the 8th position nationally. 48 people were killed in Alexandra, reflecting an increase of 23 more counts. The other station chairperson, which also featured in the national list of murder, is Johannesburg Central, Atteridgeville, Orange Farm, Tembisa, Ivory Park, as well as GP. Those are the stations that are featuring in the national list of the top 30 for murder. Chairperson of those stations from the top 40, only 5 stations recorded the reduction, and 35 stations indicated an increase. And of those stations that reported an increase for quarter 3, is Alexandra with the highest count of 23. And those that reported the reduction was El Dorado Park with 13 counts lower that they have registered. Next slide. These are the remainder of our top 40 for murder. In the 40th position is Orlando with an increase of 45.5. Chairperson, this top 40 station for murder, alone they contribute 63.3% of overall murder figure in the province for quarter 3. Moving over to our trio crime. Next slide. The trio crime as well for this one, as PC indicated, this remain our problematic category of crime. As we have seen in the 3 months that making the quarter, we have reported an increase. In October, we increased by 256, November 6 cases more, December 197. Looking at the district, unfortunately, all the districts have reported an increase for the trio crime. The highest being Johannesburg with 173 counts, followed by Tshwane 155, Western 98, Citibank 30, 5 cases reported by Ekurhuleni more. Moving over to our top 40 of the trio crime. Next slide, please. Chairperson, this top 40 station, there are a few stations that are also featuring in the national list of the trio. Because this type of crime is predominantly in Gauteng province. You find out in the national list, 60% of the list, the station are alone from Gauteng. The station that are highlighted there, the 18th station, which is Tembisa, Ivory Park, Johannesburg Central, Acacia, Orange Farm, Honeydew, Boisens, Mamelodi East, JP, Randfontein, Silverton, Pretoria West, Kagiso, Alexandra, Mondial, Loate, Moffat View, as well as Oliven, Hosbol. All those 18 stations are forming part of the national list as well as the provincial list, of which in the provincial list, Tembisa is leading as well as Ivory Park, occupying position 1 and 2. Chairperson, of those stations that reported the reduction, 12 stations reported the reduction and 28 stations indicated an increase. And of those that reported an increase, Johannesburg Central was highest with 45 counts, Midrand 30 counts less in terms of those that reported a reduction. Next slide, please. These are the remainder of our top 40 for trio crime, of which in the last position of 40th position is Krugersdorp. However, they have reduced by 1.6 because of the volume reporting 60 counts in the third quarter. They found themselves in this top 40 station. This station alone contribute for 51.6% of overall figure of trio crime in Gauteng for third quarter. Next slide, please. Carjacking. This is our problematic crime, Chairperson. In the 3 months of the quarter, we have reported an increase in October 224, November increasing by 70 counts, December 184 counts. Unfortunately, still with the district, all 5 of them have reported an increase, highest being Johannesburg by 156 counts more, followed by Ekurhuleni 115, Tshwane 104, Western 89, Citibank lastly with 16 counts more. Next slide, please. With this one, Chairperson, majority of the station making up the national list, 77% of those are alone from Gauteng, with a total of 23 stations. The station are Orange Farms, Tembisa, Alexandra, Mamelodi East, Sandringham, Johannesburg Central, Ivory Park, Boisens, Moroka, Acacia, Loate, Pretoria West, Bondio, Enadale, Silverton, Kagiso, JP, Sakane, Rabbi Ridge, Randfontein, Mabopane, as well as Vosloorus. Next slide, please. The station alone are contributing 59.4% of overall figure of carjacking in the province for period under review. Next slide, please. Robberies at residential premises. In the 3 months of the quarter, it was only during the month of November where we have reported the reduction for this particular crime by 18 counts, whereas in October, 51 more counts were reported, December, 18 more counts were reported. Looking at the District Tshwane was the only one reducing by 17 counts, whereas the other 4 districts have reported an increase, with the highest increase reported by Western by 28 counts, followed by Johannesburg 20 counts, Citibank 13, Ekurhuleni lastly with 7 counts. Next slide, please. In terms of the top 40 of our robbery at residential premises, the top 11 stations from our top 40 are also forming part of our national list. However, even these top 5, although they found themselves in the top 40 due to the volumes in terms of the number of counts that were recorded during the period, they found themselves in the top list, which is Honeydew, Ivory Park, Acacia, Tembisa, Sandton. The other stations from the national list are Diepsloot, Linden, Randfontein, Kagiso, Boisens, as well as Dobsonville. Chairperson, this station 14 stations reported the reduction. Wildebreg was only station which was able to stabilize this particular crime. 25 stations indicated an increase. Looking at those that reported an increase, Randfontein was highest with 29 counts. Those that reported the reduction, Mildredrift was the highest, reducing by 21 counts. Next slide, please. These are the remainder of our top 40 for robberies at residential premises. On the last position there of our top 40 is Brook Lane. However, it reduced by 36.7%. Chairperson, this station alone are contributing 56.9% towards our figure of robbery at residential premises for period under review. Next slide, please. Robberies at non-residential premises. The 3 months of the quarter reported the reduction for this particular crime. October, 19 counts less. November, 46 counts less. December, reduced slightly by 5 counts. Looking at the district, 2 of the 5 districts reported an increase for this particular crime. The highest of the increase was from Tshwane by 68 counts, while Sedibeng just only by 1 count increase. And of those that reported the reduction, Ekurhuleni was highest in terms of the count by reducing by 117, followed by Western 19 counts less, Johannesburg 3 counts that it was reported. Looking at the top 40 for non-residential, the robberies at non-residential for quarter 3, from this top 40, Chairperson, 14, the top 14 of those are also featuring in a national list. Station being Johannesburg Central, JP, Pretoria Central, Pretoria West, Pretoria Central, Mamelodi East, Silverton, Germiston, Vosloorus, Boksburg North, Kempton Park, Boisens, Springs, Krugersdorp, lastly Acacia. Of those stations, General Chairperson, in total 21 stations reported a reduction. Brakpan, it was only station stabilized this particular crime, and 18 stations indicated an increase. And of those that reported an increase, Pretoria West was highest with 18 counts, and those that reported the reduction was from Kenton Park with 13 counts lower. Next slide, please. These are the remainder of our station for top 40 of the robberies at non-residential premises. In the 40th position is Brakpan with 15 cases that they reported, although it has stabilized this particular crime. This station alone are contributing 51.1% of our figure of robberies at non-residential premises for quarter 3. Next slide, please. For quarter 3, Chairperson, we have 24 incidents of CITs that were reported. Of this, from those, 13 were cross pavement and 9, this is where the AV was on the road. This is whereby the vehicles were bombed in these incidents to gain access to the money that is being transported. These 22 incidents, Chairperson, are coming from the 15 stations, of which 11 stations are reporting 1 incident. However, there are 4 stations with more than 1 incident. Kempton Park had 3, Krugersdorp 3, as well as Deep Sloot. Carltonville, it reported 2 incidents. In terms of the companies that were targeted, Fidelity 7 and G-Force was 15. Next slide, please. The truck hijacking, Chairperson, during the 3 months of the quarter, it was only in December where we have reported the reduction by 3 counts, whereas in October, 26 counts more reported, November 20 counts. Looking at the district, all 5 districts reported an increase, highest being Ekurhuleni 15 counts more, Johannesburg 14, Tshwane 7 counts more, Western 6, and Sedibeng just an increase by 1 count. Sexual offenses during the month of October we reduced, November as well we reduced, December we saw a reduction there of 167 reduction. PC has already alluded to the successes of whereby we have the measures that were implemented to reduce this particular crime. This offense, sexual offenses, is covering the broader category because there are 3 offenses that are reported under this category, which is rape, sexual assault, as well contact sexual offenses. We put them as a category. Looking at this category, Chairperson, it was only Tshwane reporting an increase of 17 counts. The other 4 districts have reported a reduction. The highest being Ekurhuleni by 163, followed by Sedibeng 43 counts less, Johannesburg 34 counts less, West Rand reporting 22 counts less. When you look at the place of occurrence, next slide please, where these incidents are likely to occur in Gauteng for Q3 for sexual offenses, the commonly place where the incidents are occurring is the residence of the perpetrator or victim. With the sample that we took of 71% from all the total cases that were reported, 680 of those reflected that residence of the premises is the place where these incidents are occurring. The second most commonly place where these incidents are occurring is public place with 272, and the third most place is mode of transport such as bus, car and taxi with 27 counts. Next slide please. Looking at our top 40 for sexual offenses, Chairperson, I have to indicate that even from this list, we have our 9 stations that are also forming part of the national GBV station, are also forming part of the national list as well as our provincial list. As PC has indicated, we have seen a progress in terms of timber, whereby initially from the last quarter, they occupy position number 1, both province as well as nationally. Although they still retaining the position in terms of the provincial by position 1, they slightly move lower in terms of nationally. They are now in position 6. They have reported, unfortunately, a slight reduction of 1.3%. In terms of Alexandra, the second station provincial nationally is ranking position number 8, with an increase of 39.6%. Tsakani provincially third position, nationally 14th position, with an increase of 11.3%. The remainder of the station whereby they are also featuring in the national list are Haneju, Hillbrow, Loate, Mamelodi East, as well as Randfontein. Those stations, Chairperson, 20 of those stations reflected an increase from the top 40, and the other 20 as well indicated an increase. And of those that reported an increase, the highest was from Loate with 26 counts more, and those that have indicated the reduction, the highest in terms of the reduction was Rosettenville with 15 counts lower. Next slide, please. Those are the remainder of the station forming part of our top 40 for sexual offense, in the last position being Brakpan, also increasing by 47.7%. This station alone are contributing 54.6% towards our total figure of sexual offense during the quarter under review. Next slide, please. The kidnapping, which also has become a headache for us in the province, because all the district, we've seen that this particular offense is prevalent across all the district. When you look at the 3 months making up the quarter, October we increased by 248, November 231, December 153 counts of kidnapping increases were reported. All 5 districts have increased by more than 100%, with the exception of Tshwane there increasing by 58.5%, 79 counts more. In terms of the increases for the actual counts there, the highest was from Johannesburg, 220 counts more, followed by Ekurhuleni, 151, West Rand, 115, Tshwane, 79. These are the stations that are also forming part of the provincial list of top 40 for the kidnapping. You find also that the 77% chairperson of this station are alone forming part of the national list. As we indicated, looking at the number of carjacking that we are reporting in the province, this particular offense is most probably linked to that particular crime. As PC indicated in the speech, during the commission of the crime, you find that the victims are taken out of their will, deprived the freedom of movement, whereby they kept and being dropped off. So normally, because irrespective of the time, whether you were taken against your will for 5 minutes, we register that as such as kidnapping, because as a result, the victim was deprived freedom of movement. It was kidnapping. Hence, you find that we have this number increases as a result of the carjacking that are reported in the province, because in most of the cases, the victims are taken with during the commission of crime. The stations which are forming part of the national list are Johannesburg Central. All the stations have reflected an increase except Florida. The station at Johannesburg Central, Randfontein, Tembisa, Mondio, Vosloorus, JP, Heidelberg, Protea, Kempton Park, Carltonville, Temba, Kagiso, Western Area, Albert Park, Everton, Eldorado Park, Mabopane, Pretoria Central, Moffat View, Krugersdorp. The last three from the national list are Lenasia South, Atteridgeville, as well as Rutherford. The last in our top 40 is Beggersdal, with an increase of 7 counts more on the top 40. The station chairperson alone contributes 66.8% towards our figure of kidnapping for Q3. Next slide, please. As I indicated, our leading motive in terms of our kidnapping resulting from hijacking related, both from carjacking as well as drug hijacking. The second most contributors of our kidnapping is robbery related with 130, and rape as well. The rape related cases also, there's also kidnapping involved. Revenge 71, tax related 49, ransom. This is whereby the ransom is demanded with 48 cases, domestic related 29, children whereby they are removed from their parents or guardians without permission 16 cases, and extortion also is involved there with 11 cases, intimidation 10. Next slide, please. Property related crime. For 3 months of the quarter, we have reported the reduction in this particular. October, a reduction of 510 counts less, November 425 counts less, December 739 counts. In terms of the district, West Rand was the only district reporting an increase of 27 counts more. Those that reported the reduction in the district, the highest was Ekurhuleni with 724, followed by Tshwane 613, Johannesburg 232, Sedibeng 144. These are the stations forming part of our property-related crime, of which the top 14 of those from our top 40 are also forming part of the national list. The station are Brooklyn, Honeydew, Rutherford, Viertebrug, Sunnyside, Littleton, Krugersdorp, Kempton Park, Randfontein, Benoni, Acacia, Midrand, Gasfontein, as well as Vanderbilt Park. Chairperson of those stations that reported a reduction, 26 stations of those, 14 stations indicated an increase, and of those that reported an increase, Rutherford was highest with 116 counts, and Brooklyn was highest in terms of those that reported the reduction with 36 counts less. These are the remainder of our top 40 stations. In the last position, there being Brixton, although it has reduced by 3.4%, contributing 53.3% of property-related crime for Q3 in Gauteng. Next slide, please. With regards to our stock theft, which is my last slide, Chairperson, for 3 months of the quarter, we have reported the reduction across in October, 30 counts less, November, 12 counts less, 31 counts in terms of November reduction there, December reduction. Looking at the district, Johannesburg was the only district reporting an increase by 4 counts. The other reduction was reported from Western and Tshwane, which each district reducing by 28 counts, Sedibeng 11 counts, 10 counts less by Ekurhuleni. For this one, Chairperson, although we have our top 40, nationally we don't have any station that are featuring in the stock theft. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation of the third quarter crime stats. Honorable members, it is clear that there are some decrease in certain categories of the crime stats, and in others they are increased. But it is also clear that the trio crime category is a problematic in the Gauteng province, and therefore we will have to have some of the oversight mechanism on how are we going to be able to visit those areas which have been highlighted, police stations which have been highlighted in the crime categories as being presented. And also there are recommendation members from the SABC after the overview of the PC. We will give the Provincial Commissioner the feedback with some of the measures up. Honorable members, I'm now going to note the hands for comments, questions, of some clarification in terms of the figures. I note the member Shackleton, member Malawani. I don't know on the visual. Member Hoffman, either one. Member Shackleton.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Chair, and please indulge me regarding time, but hopefully I won't go too long. I'd firstly like to obviously praise the SABC officers involved in the operation in Rosettenville. I think every member on this committee is rightfully impressed. We do wish the officers good health that were negatively affected. Obviously, it is worrying that SABC officers were involved, but we definitely encourage that you do appear to have sufficient police intelligence to close them down and ensure that they hopefully don't get involved in criminality ever again. But I hope I'm not sidetracking too much from the stats, which I'll come back to briefly. But for example, when our committee visited the Norwood police station, the incident there was that 175 firearms had been stolen, and that SABC officers had been implicated in that. And it does point to a worrying trend of SABC officers being in the province, which I think many of these things, when we're talking about theft of vehicles, talking about theft out of motor vehicles, these things are occurring on roads. Surely SABC needs their vehicles in place. But linked to that, what for me was sort of fascinating was that all these things on roads have increased, like for example truck hijacking, but CRT. And I'm almost done, Chair. I'm sorry to bore you, but I'll be done in just a few seconds. I do agree with the Provincial Commissioner's assertion that we have to look at what times liquor is sold. I certainly see in, for example, Hammanskraal, in Winterveld, when I go to these communities, taverns operate directly next to schools. I mean, directly next to it. You can stand here, you can just take 2 steps, you'll be inside a high school. You can be inside a high school and see a tavern across the road. And I know that this will probably require some kind of joint work between the province and SABC, as well, as we know that economic development issues liquor licenses. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Member Shackleton. Member Kosi Malobane.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Some of the issues that I wanted to raise were raised by Member Shackleton, but let me also add to, it's not only congratulating the Gauteng SAPS only on one incident that happened on Monday of a quick response to criminals. But I think we need to congratulate them on almost everything. If you look at the statistics that were presented, I think there is now a balance in terms of the red and greens in terms of performance in Gauteng, although the volumes are still very high. So congratulations to the team led by General Mawela. I actually think the approach of Monday should actually be the approach, an overall approach to all, to our response to crime. You know, prevention is better than cure. We managed to save a lot of money that contributes to our economy in the province, and particularly when we're experiencing a high rate of unemployment. But we also managed to prevent ordinary members of the public being murdered by those criminals. So I think what we need to do, the approach of Monday should then be extended to other services in response to rape. I think that's the issue, that, you know, sexual offenses are actually serious offenses, are a serious concern for this committee, but also for the members of the public. The reason why there's perception of crime and people are scared to actually be victims of crime is because majority of women don't feel safe, and they are scared that they might become a rape victim. Hence, the outcome of the survey indicates that people are more scared of crime than them becoming victims of crime. So I think we need to try and increase our efforts in terms of dealing with sexual offenses, crimes, or GBV in general. I also appreciate, because there's been a lot of confusion around issues of SAPS members who have died on Monday, and as per the Provincial Commissioner's report, there is no member that have actually perished. Commissioner, is that yeah? Thank you, and we appreciate that, and we celebrate that no member of our force should actually die in the hands of criminals. But we also appreciate how the police have actually responded to those dangerous criminals. Respond with fire to fire. You know, people who threaten the life of a police officer actually threatens the state and threatens the people of South Africa. And if he wants to kill, please let him be killed as well. Because I think there's nothing wrong with killing a person with so many guns that they were actually carrying, and obviously the intention was to kill in the process of committing that particular crime. In terms of closure of Shibin's commissioner, we all know that places of entertainment, they do contribute a lot to all our crimes, particularly rape, murder, robbery, as well as grievous bodily harm. I think it is time that we are very firm when dealing with illegal shibins, but also shibins who are actually operating beyond their time. And I agree with the member there that says we need to close them down. And I didn't hear you indicating how many shibins that are operating illegally or operating after Iskati Sabo have been actually closed down. And I think it is time that in Gauteng we close those things down, because they're not only creating social challenges in our communities, in our society in Gauteng, but they actually reduce a number of citizens who end up being killed, and sometimes who are raped before they're killed. I think the issue of guns, General, you didn't indicate to us how many guns have been confiscated, because most of these crimes that you have put up here, or where we see raids as opposed to greens, they are committed through illegal firearms, or sometimes with legal firearms. And we'll actually appreciate at some point as a committee to know how many guns have been confiscated, and sometimes how many guns have been surrendered. But also, how many of those get lost at the police station? Because we have discovered, because it might be, people might think that it only happened in Norwood, but it does happen in other police stations as well, where guns that have been handed over or confiscated during when crime was committed, they end up being used or in the hands of criminals. So we'll really appreciate a report that indicates to us how many of those guns have been confiscated and what happened to them, when were they destroyed. And sometimes it will be proper to invite a public viewing of when these guns are being destroyed. The other issue, Chair, is kidnapping. There's an increase in terms of kidnapping amongst, and I'm going to be specific, amongst Indian business people. And they get kidnapped, they disappear, and after some time, family are forced to pay a lot of money. And I think it is time that as Gauteng, we come up with a strategy to deal with this issue. And we know which areas, particularly in Tshwane and Sidibeng. Those are the two areas where there's serious. Now you are beginning to see the same happening in Johannesburg. At some point, it wasn't happening in Johannesburg, but the two areas were the big contributors in terms of kidnapping of Indian business people. And I think the same approach of establishing a specialized unit to deal with CIT, we need to also look at that as well. West now they're beginning to kidnap children. So I think we also need to try and deal with that particular kidnapping. Let's develop a strategy to do so. I must say, Chair, and of course, General, the issue of taxis kidnapping women and raping them is still happening. I mean, was it last week, Friday, one of our ladies who works at the shelter for abused women was nearly raped or kidnapped by the taxi people until she opened the door of the car. And I've taken it up with the Alexander Taxi Associations, but it seems this thing is a culture. And I remember when I was MEC, when we were dealing with this issue, I mean, the taxi bosses were like, for them it's like culture that women, if you number last time or 20 in a taxi at night, you are definitely going to be the victim of being kidnapped and be raped by a taxi driver that will actually be driving that particular taxi. And I think we really need to revisit and zoom in this area where women and girls in particular, you know, these young girls who get into taxis, they end up being victims of this law. But I think, Chair, from my side, I must say that whilst we have indicated earlier that I appreciate the balance between the two in terms of performance between red and green, I still believe that the volumes are still too high. You look at the numbers. I mean, if you look at murder, about 243 people were murdered in Gauteng in 3 months. Yeah? Because if you look at last year, we had 1,234, and this year we had 1,000, I'm looking at the same period, 1,507. I mean, 243 people in one province, it's too much. It's actually very sad, but you also look at assault GBH, because some of the victims of assault GBH end up being victims of murder anyway. I mean, almost 1,000 were actually beaten up, and whereas assault GBH, ukishilihlo, ukwazwa mathumbu, and all that. You know, so it's not just it's a serious thing that happened to people, and that's what makes our people being scared of crime, because then you really become scared. Good, I might become such a victim, and in most cases, these cases are not successful cases in terms of prosecution. And I think we really need to zoom in terms of trying to reduce the numbers. You look at no, it's not even. It's not even 940, it's 10,798. And I'm not talking about as I demonstrated earlier. So 10,798, it's actually a dangerous number. And we still say we have performed in terms of percentage 8.2. I mean, really, I have afford to go on your way home and ulimali. So I think, Chair, here I'm actually saying let's look at the volumes. percentage is good, we perform, sawabona green, but let us also try and deal with reducing the number of people who become victims. And then we'll then be able to come up with a percentage, because if people see that there's lesser people who get beaten up or murdered in our province, they will actually have confidence in us. Yes, people are going to begin to have confidence, but let me tell you, Chair, abantu kubona abantu balele lapha nabadutshuliwe babulewe, yes babulawa amaphoyisa bebathi committee crime, you won't get any confidence because it's still violence. Yabona sifuna ukubona more people balele lapha nababoshiwe, and later in a year or two we must be told that all those people were actually sentenced to life, because that's what people want to see. Because there's a lot of excitement at the moment about what happened on Monday, but I'm telling you, next week is a bit iffy, and 6 months down the line it will be dead, and probably those people will be out. So we really need to also be nothing as a committee. We really need to monitor what happens to these 10 people that were arrested. Will they be in a year's time or in 6 months' time? Will they be sent to prison for life, because they deserve to be in prison permanently? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Gosi Malobane. Member Hoffman on visual.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. To the PC, I think it would be good to start off and congratulate the PC on his successes. I think the CIT Heist is a type of a cowboy crime where innocent bystanders usually get hurt. So taking those thugs off the street, PC, you did the country and the province a great service. Madam Chair, with all that being said, and I alluded to the MEC that's also working hard on the ground, I've also attended Ukai Malau, and I'd like to further congratulate the generals on the ground that's doing hard work and doing footwork and not sitting in the offices and watching other members do the work, but that they are on the ground. So with that being said, Madam Chair, I think that the General, the PC, understands the importance of him being hands-on in Gauteng and taking crime head-on. With the establishment of this special unit, we immediately saw impact and we immediately saw successes, and that warms my heart. With that being said, Madam Chair, we look at statistics sometimes and we get a bit desensitized. Each one of the numbers in this report is a human being that either lost their life, their dignity, or property. And that saddens me. You know, sometimes when we look at these statistics, you know, we see they go up and down, but we forget the impact on the community in large in Gauteng. And I think we should get back to a point where we start feeling the hurt that the Gauteng community as a whole are feeling. PC, Madam Chair, through you, the last CIT heist that we saw and the previous one in the West Rand, it is clear that these thugs have certain influences or connections within the SAPS. We've seen numerous clothing articles that you gathered there, as well as firearms, and this to me is concerning. We did not, or yourself did not, allude to the firearms that have been confiscated in the last raid. You alluded to it being R5 rifles and some other pistols, etc., DM4s. But if it's R5 rifles, surely it should be military or police firearms. And my question would be to the PC, if they ascertained if these firearms do belong to ex-police or members, or then SANDF firearms. Madam Chair, I think with the stats being as they are, we see some green ones that went down, and we are happy for it. And then we see some extreme increases in some parts and portions of the report, and that is worrisome. But I think the focus should be on firearms and the integrity of the police uniform. The PC alluded to over 1,000 firearms that was confiscated, and that is great work, and thank you for that, PC. In the same time, we lost 175 plus firearms from Norwood Police Station, and that was in police possession, and that is worrisome. With the CIT heist in the West Rand, we also saw firearms that came from the police, and I'm sure that this CIT heist will also show that there's firearms that came from the police in this last instance. The uniforms are of great concern. We know on the freeways in Gauteng, we've got gangs operating as police officers, pulling people over, hijacking them, taking their money, and taking them to the ATMs to draw some more. And that is a worrisome factor. And I think that, with this new CIT complement that we have, we should also maybe broaden that spectrum to look for uniforms and police firearms further. Madam Chair, I don't want to speak too broad. I think my other colleagues mentioned a few things. I just want to add my 2 cents to the illegal shebeens, and this is a problem for SAPS. And I'm saying that because the other departments are failing SAPS on this. And I sit in these meetings, and constantly SAPS get beaten over their head for not closing down or not being hard-handed with these illegal alcohol selling places. The problem with that is, Madam Chair, they are bound by papers that get from the liquor board, and if they get to a premises, usually there's an application, or there's an application pending, or there's a temporary license given, and this is a liquor board problem, and it's a consistent problem, and the liquor board is not coming to the table to sort out their internal stuff. There's a lot of corruption, and I'm saying it. There's a lot of corruption within that department, and I think the way we're going to solve this is to send the SAPS to the department and not to the illegal shebeens. The problem is within that department, and that should be sorted out. Madam Chair, last thing, and then I'm going to stand down. I went to a meeting, thanks to you, to the NPA, and one of the things that really upset me in that meeting was the fact that illegal immigrants, the Department of Home Affairs are failing the police again with regards to illegal immigrants and the paperwork. And then there was a court case that said, they gave them 4 months to rectify some issues within the law, and that has not happened. So the problem that the police are sitting with is they cannot act because the laws of this country is not in place. And that is a big problem. And I can see on the faces of the generals and the SAPS guys there, the frustration that they have. If we look at this last CIT heist, it was clear that it was a lot of Zimbabweans that were involved in this. If they were properly vended or checked at the borders, or their documentation was right, then you can look for fingerprints, and that would assist the police. But if somebody comes over the border without being vetted or checked by Home Affairs, how can the police get hold of that person? How can they identify that person? So, Madam Chair, we always throw rocks at the SAPS, and that's fine. Some of what is happening is the SAPS's fault. But I think with illegal immigrants and the surge in crime that we have to support the SAPs in Gauteng and all over the country by reprimanding these departments that's not servicing the rest of South Africa. We have to stop the Department of Home Affairs corruption within the department and to allow these things to happen. And stop blaming the SAPS for everything that's wrong in all the other departments. I think it is time that we urgently set up a meeting with Home Affairs, Madam Chair. I would really appreciate if we can do that. Set up a meeting with Home Affairs and with the PC if he is willing, and that we sort out and stamp out the issue of illegal immigrants, documentation, and the rest. I thank you, Madam Chair. Have a nice day.
You must not leave the meeting. The meeting is still on, Member Hoffman. I saw Member Nkosi Malobani say.
No, Chair, I actually forgot one important thing, man. PC, there was this challenge, I think it's still there, EASA N4 and Intswane and R104 of spikes that Abasfaguma Highway. And also, once your tires puncture, you become a victim of robbery. I just wanted to check what is the status of that particular situation. And the last one, Chair, that I forgot was the PCF indicated that there were vehicles that were actually presented to Gauteng SAPS by the Premier to assist with crime fighting. I just want to check with that contribution. I think it's more than 50 vehicles, if I'm not mistaken. With that contribution, how it has assisted with the challenge of motor vehicles that are scarce in our stations, and how it has assisted with our response time. And the last one, still on vehicles, have we resolved the issue of at least small issues must be dealt with by local service providers? I'm not talking about Abu Mechanica, the backyard mechanics, but I'm talking about Toyotas, Nissans, etc. When the tire have burst, instead of taking your car to a government garage that takes forever, are we now allowed to take the vehicles to the nearest service providers, whether it's Nissan, Toyota, or Ford, or whatever, just to try and deal with the small things? Then I will understand if it's actually accidents, and particularly big accidents where the car is not moving, and we can then keep it and do some investigation. But isn't it Amalite, etc., are we now able to take our cars to be serviced in the nearest areas? You know, the reason why I'm raising this, encourage because no one wants to lose a car for 6 months. Particular station commanders, poor them, they end up being authorities because they keep quiet and take these cars for a fixing of the light, changing of the tire, but a relationship with good service providers around. And then when he's caught, that person is treated like a criminal, when he's not actually a criminal. He was trying to make sure that his resources are available 24/7. So maybe in the shop steward in future, when they get charged PC, I will come and represent them, because it's not fair to charge a person who's trying to make sure that vehicles or resources are forever available for the members of the public. Thanks.
Thanks, Member Nkosi Malobane. Member Bosch.
Thanks, Chair. Let me just get this right. Okay, I just want to, first of all, also latch onto the liquor license issue that the PC raised with regards to fraudulent licenses. So in other words, photocopies or licenses that expired or actually belong to a previous owner and not to the actual specific tavern. Is there any specific stats available on that as to exactly how many of these type of taverns and fraudulent licenses are we dealing with? And what kind of action has been taken against those taverns specifically who uses these photocopies or expired licenses or licenses from previous owners? And then further to that, is there any internal training taking place to actually teach the officers as to how to do proper inspections to see whether the license that is up at the tavern is indeed belonging to that specific tavern? I've heard of cases in Mamelodi, for instance, where the license actually belongs to a liquor store and not even to a tavern, and the liquor store is 3 blocks down from that specific tavern. But the license is photocopied and put up inside that tavern, and they've got some sort of deal between them and the tavern for the liquor store for sharing this license so that they can actually get access to alcohol after hours if they do run out. So what kind of database do we have, or data do we have available on these, and what plan of action do we have to address this, except for the issues that we've got with regards to the liquor board itself? Then you also made mention of the Kwatema, Akasha police stations that needs better venues, and that you are currently struggling to get assistance. Could you maybe just possibly elaborate a little bit more on that? What has been done already? Where is your blockages exactly? Is it with DID? Is it with the local municipalities? And, you know, what exactly is the issues there? I know I personally visited Akasha before, and they also complained, the officers at that station, and said that they need, you know, if there's constant sewage problems and things like that, and they don't have parking, and a part of that station, I think, is still in a container. You know, so these are things, but if you can just elaborate on the exact details so that we as a committee can maybe, you know, intervene to an extent to try and set up like a dual committee of some sort with DID to try and see if we can't address the issues. Then, just with regards to the vehicles, I know my colleagues spoke a lot about the vehicles, but I think if you had to look at the police stations that is underperforming at this stage, you could clearly come to the conclusion that there might be a lack of resources, first of all, in order to do visible policing, which then contributes to the increase in the crime stats. And so apart from vehicles that is out of order, that is not working and stuck in garages, I think the police also has a very serious issue with regards to vacancies that cannot be filled. And that contributes to the fact that there can't be visible policing. I know that, for instance, the minute a police officer turns 65, by the end of that month, they get locked out of a system and they immediately go home. And there's no proactive approach as to try and determine on a quarterly basis as to how many people will be retiring this quarter, so that you can start the process of filling those vacancies in a proactive manner. Is there any progress in that regard? Is there something that we as a committee can drive to try and assist, so that we can try and address those vacancies, so that we don't have a situation of one detective in a police station that needs to deal with a very large, you know, area? Then lastly, I also just want to add on, well, 2 things. The second last one is the Garankuwa police station. It was not in the top 40 that was presented to us with crime stats. But one of the things that I picked up is that the Garankuwa police station has not had electricity for the last 5 to 6 months. They only recently, in the last 10 days, the electricity issue was addressed. And this electricity issue was not a local government issue, but an actual ESCOM issue. And the morgue and the mortuary and the court that is right next to the Garankuwa police station was indeed reconnected with electricity at the end of last year already, but Garankuwa still remained without power. And this had a bad influence on the impact on the operations of a police station. They couldn't keep their doors open at night, they couldn't service the community. And how do we make sure that something like that doesn't happen again? And from my understanding, that electricity has only been repaired temporarily. So how do we address the problem on a permanent basis so that the police station can be operational fully? And then lastly, just to latch on to my colleague, Member Hoffman, and the fake cops, and all the stories and bad rumors and, you know, things that's going around on social media. Could you perhaps explain to us if there's any internal investigation going on at the moment, and what is currently happening with regards to that? And is there a number that can be called that is operational 24 hours of a day kind of thing, that if a member of the public does encounter something like that, where can they report it at that time specifically? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bosch. While I'm still going to note the stakeholders, not media. Media will only get the time when the PC is done, make an appointment with the office of the PC to interview him. Can I note the stakeholders which have confirmed that those that they want to make comments? Stakeholders who want to make comments? Because I've got the list, honorable members, of the stakeholders who have confirmed that they will be part of us. Maybe some there visually. While Tabile is checking, PC, with regard to the 3 police stations which you have mentioned in terms of the challenges of the infrastructure,